Joshua Broom, a lot to break down with the Supreme Court ruling upholding Texas's age verification law. I want to get into all of that, but you have an incredible story. And for those who don't know your story, you came out of the porn industry. You later became a Christian. You have been speaking out against the industry. What is it that motivates you to be so passionate speaking out against an industry that you were once part of?
Yeah, I mean, so I was in the porn industry from 2006 to 2013. I left in January of 2013, and over the last 11 years, I found Jesus. I had started a relationship with Him, surrendered my life. Met an incredible girl, got married, got a theological education, and I think about like Ephesians 2:8 and 9. But it's by grace that we're saved through faith, and it's not of our own doing. And but then verse 2:10 it says that, and there's stuff that God has predestined for us to do, and that we should walk in them. And for me, as the wild as it is to hear that there's this guy that was in the porn industry that now travels and preaches the gospel, you know, thinking about Paul, who used to persecute and kill Christians, writing, 66% of the New Testament. And that would be if you didn't know the context or didn't, work on the back end of that story, it sounds pretty wild, but neither of those things surprised God. So I would say, that's the reality. And at the same time, it's like, man, God doesn't waste anything. And I think when you are rescued for something, it is instinctive to a follower of Jesus to reciprocate what you've been given or you've experienced. So for me, that I care deeply about each and every person who is currently in the porn industry. I'm not mad at you. I don't hate you. I want the best for you. You were created in the image of God. But I would say that what you were doing with your life is not what God designed, and it's not what is best for you. And I feel the same way about the person that is consuming the content. So I think, over the last 5, 6 years, I had some people come into my life and really educate me around the legislation or the lack thereof around pornography, both on the consent side, on the performer side, and the consumption side regarding how is it regulated regarding consumption, age verification, and things like that. So I've really had people pour into me. So what if you go through your life and the things that you used to experience with or that broke you, what if you didn't just tell a story about, hey, this is something that's really bad, that you did the research, and this is what I've studied neuroscience. I work for a Christian mental health organization that I can now tell people how it impacts your brain in a specific way. So I say all that to say, man, God had this big, glorious plan that I never saw coming when I left the porn industry, well over 10 years ago. Been following Jesus for almost 10 years. I've seen Him do so many things, but I think that's His plan. His plan is, hey, I'm going to rescue you from darkness. I'm going to equip you with my Spirit. You're going to be sealed and saved because of the blood of Christ. Now I'm going to send you back into chaos to save people from what you were rescued from. And I think that's His plan. And He just does it over and over and over again if we're willing to step out and say,
And you have been living that out really beautifully, and it's been fun to watch that. One of the things that I think is so interesting about this case in particular, right? That you have been very vocal on age verification out in Texas. The Supreme Court coming in and giving a very strong 6-3 ruling on this. What was your reaction to that ruling as somebody who has fought for these age verification laws?
well, if I try to not get cynical in my old age, but the first thing I thought was, wow, the same three judges opposed, the implementation of LGBT like curriculum in schools, and they opposed abortion, and they opposed this age verification. Why? At the end of the day, it's all about money, and it's sad to say that, but it's all about money. So that was the first thing that I thought. But then I thought, wow, I thought for sure there was going to be a remand. For I thought that best case scenario was going to be a remand. It was going to get set down to a lower court, and there was going to be some kind of nuance that needs to be changed because I've been working on age verification alongside Nkosi for over 5 years. And the first time that it was introduced, it didn't pass because multiple things, but primarily we set the age of 21. So it was like, hey, that's not gonna fly. Let's go with 18. And 18 is far too young to see pornography, in my opinion. But we said, okay, how can we stop the deterioration of this world and the amount of people, specifically kids, are being harmed? If 18 is the place in which we think it's going to go, let's do that. Let's make it bipartisan. That way, whoever comes into power, hey, we both decided, hey, do you want to stop the destruction of family and the harm of kids? Do you care about that yet? Do you care about people? Do you have a soul? Great. So let's go forward. So I think that I was really pleased that it was upheld. And it's a huge deal because the Free Speech Coalition challenging that it was a an infringement on your First Amendment rights. I think that's where they went really wrong because it's not an infringement on your rights. It's a boundary, not a barrier. So it's not a blockade. In that, hey, if you want to consume that in the same way that if you want to see a rated R movie, if you want to consume alcohol, if you want to buy tobacco, then okay, prove that you're of age and since you're an adult, then you can do something that in my opinion, would be very detrimental for you. But you live in America, you're of age, and then you can choose to make a bad decision. That's the world that we live in. But yeah, I mean, I was shocked that it was upheld for sure.
I mean, boiling it down to a free speech issue when there is a lot of data, as you were indicating, I'd love for you to speak to this a little bit, showing the damage this does, not just to young people, but to everybody, to marriages, to you go down the line, but especially young people, the way their brain is developing, the addictive elements of pornography for everyone, again, not just children. When you talk about alcohol having a specific age on it, where you have to present an ID, right? You have to prove that you're a certain age in order to have access to alcohol because it's addictive, it's damaging, it's dangerous. How does porn also reflect that? Because again, it feels like they were looking past those details and facts surrounding just to say, oh, it's free speech. It goes way deeper than that, does it not?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we've seen the average age of a first time, the first time you see it, the first time exposure, it went from 11 and it's trending towards 8 years old. And it went from most kids are seeing it for the first time on a smartphone. Now, because of the implication of various smart devices, iPads and whatnot in schools and in homeschools, if you're on an unprotected device, then there is a 100% chance if you're on the internet, you're going to see something that would fall under the category of pornography. So, what is pornography? It's sexual imagery. So, highly likely that you would see it. Why is that dangerous? Well, if the average age of exposure is around 8 years old, the prefrontal cortex in your brain is not even 50% developed. And just a shout out to anyone with young kids, because their prefrontal cortex is not fully developed. That is why my 3-year-old Judah, when he wants butter toast in the morning, he gets upset. He cannot control himself from crying and screaming because he cannot regulate his emotions because that part of his brain is not fully developed. The prefrontal cortex is the thing that is impacted when you consume pornography. When that dopamine hit goes up to your synapse, it also damages your prefrontal cortex. So I think very strategically by Satan that the part of your brain that allows you to control impulse and regulate your emotion is damaged by something that we ought not consume. And it is creating an ideology. It teaches you not to love people and to use things. It teaches you to commodify or to love things and to use people. And because of that, we're living in a world where, you know, people are saying, hey, not your no doesn't mean no, it means how much. And that it's just a sad place to be. So that's why it's so dangerous. It's literally, yes, it's creating a false ideology around sex, intimacy, and relationships, but also it's literally damaging their brain. So that's why there's such a correlation between depression and suicidal ideation and porn consumption because it damages your ability to regulate your emotions. So when you feel triggered by something and you go to cope with pornography, well, the thing that you used to look at doesn't do the trick anymore. So the porn sites, they're advertising things that is deeper and darker. You think about the way that your landing a landing page of any good website, or if you're a writer or a speaker, you're your site. What do you want on your landing page? This is where you book. This is where you go to book me to speak. This is where you buy my book. Well, if you go onto the landing page of Pornhub, what are they pushing? Non-consensual pornography. Peep shows or whatever it might be, like uh, a hidden camera, all this stuff. That this is what you'll find on those porn sites because they're trying to inundate you with information to create an ideology in you where you're consuming this stuff. And that's the world that we live in. So why is it dangerous? Because the content on those sites is eroding and destroying the brain and teaching them things that are unlawful.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's absolutely true. And then you have this other issue where, and this is just the government's responsibility, right? But the power, and I'm going to read this. This is from Justice Clarence Thomas. He wrote this for the majority. The power to require age verification is within a state's authority to prevent children from accessing sexually explicit content. The idea that the government has a responsibility, that's what he's saying here, to protect children. Why do you think it's taken so long, from your perspective, for the government to step into this role? And it took the court to really maintain this and say, okay, but even the states took a really long time to come up with these laws and regulations. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think the reason that it's taken so long to implement some kind of legislation or to hold some kind of legislation because the reality is $100 billion industry. It makes more money than the NBA and NFL and Major League Baseball all combined. And I mean, you even look in the last campaign, presidential campaign, there were ads ran on these websites in swing states. There were ads ran on porn sites saying, "Hey, if you want to continue to consume porn in the way you are now, then if you vote this way, then you'll be able to continue watching that." So who ran those ads and who paid for them is up for discussion. But I just know that there was an agenda that was behind it, saying, "Hey, if you don't want age verification and things like this to happen, well, you're not going to want someone in office that's going to side with those things." So I mean, it's just bizarre at the end of the day. Like just to think that um, there are there's stuff that's available to kids that is impacting them in a negative way that anyone would say, "No, it's fine. Let's fight for that." And to think that there's three judges that thought, "No, no, no, let's not worry about that," because they were saying that their concern was the third party AI verification, that it was going to extract your data. How many people click yes on cookies? Do you know what cookies is? Cookies is, hey, take my information and then advertise things, solicit me things based on you extracting my information, and then sell me things that you know that I want based on you having my information. That happens every single time you go on any website. Yet nobody's concerned about that, but you're so concerned about a third party verification so that you can go into a porn website. It's insane.
Yeah, no, it is. And it's going to be interesting to see where this goes next. Now, I assume this is going to be a battle you continue to help fight across the country. Would that be a proper assumption?
Absolutely. I think so. This is a huge deal because the Supreme Court upheld Texas, the age verification. And the thing that Texas was doing that other states weren't is they were implementing fines. And that's the way that you get a huge corporation's attention. You impact their money because that's the thing that they care about. So Texas was actually implementing the fines for websites that were not, following the checks and balances that were implicated or set into motion legally. So I think what could be a really incredible step in the right direction is that the states that have implemented the age verification, they go to the next level, which is to then, sue people that are not adhering to the legislation. Because until that happens, well, there's not going to be a recourse, and there's not going to be any repercussions for them not doing what they're supposed to do, and they're not going to do it because that's been their mo for a long time. Because their tech is better, they make a lot of money, they operate in places where they can be immune to any kind of any kind of legal ramifications. So if they're not going to be fined, that nothing is going to change. So there needs to be legislation set in place and fines sent to people who are not.
Well, Josh, we will have you back to talk more about this as these stories develop. Appreciate you joining us today.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more Christ-centered journalism.